We are back, and I'm here with Bill Harris. We're talking about the 9 principles for conscious living, and we're moving on to principle number 7, which is
moving into the last trimester.
Yeah, the last trimester of the life principles, and this one is a good one. It is the principle of witnessing. If you broke down the amount of time that we spend, hundreds of hours a week talking to people on the phone and emailing people from around the world about coaching and one concept that we would want to get through and help them with, if anything else, it's got to be this one. So tell me about witnessing.
Well, you know, we've been leading up to this and leading up to this because witnessing is just that watching with awareness. That's really all it is watching with awareness with no agenda for what happens, just curiously watching. There's nothing, it's not wrong, it's not right, it's just whatever is happening. I've often used the metaphor of it's like you're a scientist and you're in the Amazon jungle and you've been sitting there on your little camp stool waiting for years for this one rare butterfly to fly by, and here it comes. And so you're going to watch very carefully, and you're not saying, wait a minute, that butterfly shouldn't fly in that way, or it shouldn't land on that branch. Wait a minute, it shouldn't eat that way, or whatever. You have no outcome in mind other than that you just want to watch and see what happens. And that's what we're trying to get people to do, to watch their thoughts, to watch the pictures they make in their mind, to watch the sensations in their body, to watch what they believe, to watch their premises. You know, in other words, to look at that map and observe it, not to try to change it, just to be curious to see how it works. So I think the reason, Mark, that people have trouble with this is what I just said at the end of when we were talking about the last principle, which is that there's always something you're unaware of. No matter how aware you are, there's always another level of something that you're caught in that you're not aware of and is happening automatically for you. Some premise or something. Just like we talked about the baby being caught in oceanic oneness, or caught in just random movements or random sensory impressions and so on. There's something always that you're caught in, and then when you become aware of it, something really shifts. Well, the reason people are confused about this is because what we're asking them to become aware of is something that they're not aware of now. So it's always like elusive. It's like, you're driving in the fog and you can't see very far ahead, so you can't see things. And what I used to say to people is, have you made any, since you picked up the phone and started talking to me, have you made any physical movements? Have you shifted in your chair? Have you picked any objects up on, that are near the phone? And the person says, well, yeah. Were you aware of doing it now that you think back on it? Some of them I was, some of them I wasn't. I mean, like, have you crossed your legs or uncrossed your legs, or, like moved your foot, or, there's a lot of things we do that we're not aware of. But now, could you reach out and pick something up and be aware of it? Could you move your arm and be aware that you're moving it? Well, yeah. Well, that's witnessing.
Yeah, and by the time you're doing that, you can't help but be aware of it once it's brought to your attention.
You're witnessing your physical motions. Well, you think, well, big deal. Well, it was a big deal to you at one time. You see, when you were a little baby and you didn't know yet that you could reach out and pick something up, but then you figured that out, and now you can watch yourself reach out and pick something up, then at that point it's a big deal. So there are things now that people are not aware of that they're doing, but they're not aware of how they're doing them. And when we ask them to become aware of them, at first it's like, what? I don't get it. What do you mean? I mean, if you could talk to a baby and say, look, there's a rattle there. You can pick it up. Go ahead. And the baby is, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's just complete,
Yeah.
mystery.
But don't you think that what happens a lot of times in this, with witnessing in particular, it seems that most of us were born and raised to be problem solvers.
Right.
How to, where to go to school, and all the way down to what to have for dinner, who to marry or whether to marry and what job to take. And when you're witnessing, you're dealing with a set of feelings that you would typically maybe problem solve on. How do I get rid of these feelings, or how do I get more of the feelings I want?
Right.
And you're saying don't engage in that, just
Well,
watch.
first of all, people don't realize the previous principle, the principle of conscious change, that all you have to do is observe this stuff, and whatever part of it doesn't serve you will fall away.
Right.
They don't realize that. Another thing is that, this problem-solving thing that you just talked about, there's a reason why people do that, and the reason is it's a safety thing. If you think, for instance, how do I evaluate this relationship, whether this is the right relationship or the wrong relationship, or how do I evaluate whether this is the job I should take or it isn't the right job I should take? Well, why would somebody be evaluating that? Obviously, because making the wrong decision is unsafe. There's something bad that will happen if I choose the wrong person, or if I choose the wrong job. I could make a mistake, then what? Well, that's a form of focusing on what you don't want. That's saying there's danger out there, I've got to watch out for it. This is a great example, because those, if I say there's danger out there and you have to watch out for it, that's usually not what people would think of. But it's those little day-to-day things where you say, do I want the cheeseburger, or do I want the wrap for lunch? Because you're thinking, gee, if I get the cheeseburger and I don't like it, it's the same kind of, it's a mundane thing, but it's the same kind of evaluation as, do I want to ask her out on a date and maybe get in a relationship with her, or is it the wrong person? So people don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to have negative consequences, so they do all this analyzing. And it's not that is a bad thing necessarily, or that it doesn't help at all. But if you, for instance, with the woman involved, if you could say, what do I believe about women? What do I believe about relationships? Am I proving something here that I don't want to prove? It could be, you could be proving that women really adore me and they're really kind to me, and you could be proving something really, really positive too. It's not that every belief that you have is a negative belief, certainly. But if you can watch yourself say, okay, I'm proving something, and let me see what it is, let me watch what it is. Or you are watching the internal representations you make while you're thinking about this woman, then things sort themselves out in another way that isn't so available as, as it is if you're evaluating things.